Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Today is a special called meeting of the Commissioners Court. We are in the Ralph H. Walton Jr. Justice Center, the Central Jury Room at 1200 West Pearl Street. Today is September the 5th, 2023, and it's 9:30 a.m. Fortunately, we have today with us again the illustrious Mike McMahon to give us an invocation, our old standby that's always here. So, Pastor McMahon, please lead us in an invocation.
I want to say again what a privilege it is to stand in a courtroom like this in the United States of America and glorify God. Pray with me, please. Father, thank you for the way you take care of us. Thank you for what you have provided for us. Thank you for what you wish that we would do. Help us to remember that we're your kids and that the money that's going to be discussed this morning is your money, not ours. And I pray that it will be considered in that light and handled in that manner. Thank you for our time together. We love you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now to the great state of Texas.
Honor Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, the first item on the business to be discussed and considered for approval, item number 1, discuss and take appropriate action to accept the return of assessments overpayments paid to the Hood Central Appraisal District from 2020 and prior 2021, 2022 in the amount of $522,870.73. Funds should be directed into a separate line item GL account to be set up by the auditor. This will be a standalone account. Commissioner Samuelson, do you put it on there so you want to discuss?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to make perfectly clear that there are members on the current Hood Central Appraisal District Board that were not around when the prior board and the prior chief appraiser began setting up the inappropriate fund balance. These new board members are working hard to right the ship and improve transparency and fiscal responsibility, and I really appreciate what they're doing. However, this refund is due to the prior board and prior chief appraiser engaging in discussions with GISD administration on a land swap, as well as engaging architects and lawyers to figure out the land swap and how to build a new building. All of this was done without proper resolution, passed by the board, and sent to the taxing entities. The inappropriate fund balance was carried for several years. This was taxpayer money held in violation of Tax Code 6.06. This was $522,870 of county taxpayer money that could have been used for salaries, equipment, jail expenses, or to lower the Hood County budget. There are a few emails. I did an open records request and asked for communication, and I just want to read a few of them. This is from prior Chief Appraiser Eddie Rowe on April 11th, 2023 to Mark Jackson. Pete, who's the appraisal district lawyer, and GISD attorney have been working together on the land part. They'd copied me on a few interactions, and it seems like they are disagreeing on some interpretations. They are both looking at angles to do this land deal without competitive bidding. I had no idea the land would be this difficult process as it is from a taxing entity. I expect to hear back from them today. This is from March 22nd, 2023, from Eddie Rowe to Dr. Jeremy Glenn and Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson is on the Appraisal District Board. Dr. Glenn, sorry if I looked caught off guard when I found out we were just on a discussion item today. We were really hoping to walk out with 3 yeses from the biggest 3 entities, ha. We still need to keep the pedal on the metal. When is the soonest we can get your school board agenda? Mark said y'all will be working on that today for next week. Is there any way we could get added to next week's meeting? If not, when do you think the soonest we can get on your agenda as an actionable item? Thank you for speaking today in support of Hood Central Appraisal District. That really means a lot to us. This is from Eddie Rowe to Pete Smith, who's their attorney. We have begun to present our hope for a new building to the entities. Sorry, this is from March 23rd, 2023. Will you send a resolution we will need to provide the entities so that we may approve or disapprove, so that they may approve or disapprove the location and the building? And that building a new building is the most cost-effective move. I believe we will need a resolution to be signed by our board. Looking. Sorry. There's one more in here that I want to be sure and read. Oh, this is the one. Okay, this was on April 10th, 2023, from Pete Smith, who's the attorney for the Appraisal District, to Eddie Rowe. Are you going to proceed with creating a public facility corporation as the government capital originally proposed, or are they willing to loan the funds without the process? Do you want to proceed with the land swap for taxing unit without the construction of the building portion of the project? There's other emails in here that talk about trying to do this without competitive bidding. So anyway, you get the gist of it. This is what happens when we as taxing entities and elected officials take our eye off the ball. We must remain forever diligent to ensure that your tax dollars are used appropriately. We must learn a lesson from this experience to hold our appointed officials accountable and ensure we are paying attention. There's also a document that lists, well, I just got this, so I didn't get to scan it in and give it to Drew, but there's also a document here that talks about the amount of retained funds that were retained by the appraisal district starting from 2015. Some of it in 2015 for full year, 2016 for full year 2015 retained $259,944 for retirement prior service credit. So the total of all of these from 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 is $2.6 million. That is not the total that is being returned to the taxing entities. So there's still some work to be done. So that's, I will make the motion to accept the money unless, other people might want to comment, so I'll wait for that.
Okay. Ms. Leanne McCoy, did you want to say anything? Okay. Now, I know that we discussed with you and Becky and all about putting it into a standalone account. I don't know if that's the same thing as a line item account, but it should be a standalone account to be used for no purpose. Is
That's
that
what I would
correct? Not like
recommend.
Fund 55 or something like that we can use for contingencies. Don't you think that
Yes, sir, that's my recommendation.
is to put in a separate account? And I don't know, Mr. Mills, do you know if this money can be in an interest-bearing account?
Nobody's asked me to look at that, Judge, so.
Well, yeah, that's something that, well, we have time, but just see if it can be drawing interest, because interest rates are pretty high right now.
Well, that's what
Some
I wanted to
short-term
do,
CDs. I
get it
know
in
that
there, but then
First National Bank usually backs up anything like this
That's what I would
with their own CDs. It wouldn't be any chance of losing the money, and if they'll do that, and if we can do it, they earn some money on that, so we could do that. Does anybody wish to comment
Judge.
further?
We have already had conversations about investing this money for a 9-month period, get it in a separate fund, and then from there, invest it for a
Okay.
9-month period.
It's also still in an interest-bearing account.
Just not a
We
good-
Put it in the bank, we're going to earn interest on it. Just depends on how much you want and where you want to put it.
Okay. Well, we need to check out that. Just get the highest and safest rate, okay? Okay. So Ms. Samuelson has made a motion.
Oh, I didn't make the motion.
Okay, can I,
Yeah.
Your Judge, if you don't mind, I got a couple of things. I agree with Commissioner Samuelson on the point about the taxing entities paying more attention to what's happening at the appraisal district. In the last few weeks, I've attended, a few months actually, attended their monthly meeting and watched this issue that is on the agenda today, watch it kind of unfold. And the point that I'd like to make is that they did go out independently and get with an architect and with lawyers and contractors and started putting this deal together in six-digit money. They spent several $100,000 on this, besides the money that we're talking about today, which is just surplus from the yearly, after the budget end. So there's more, I think there's more on this iceberg that will be coming public over the next few weeks. And, I don't recall that the Texas Tax Code, Section 606, had any restrictions. If the taxing entity, I think it's a good idea to put it in a separate account, but I don't think there's any restrictions on what we can do with it. It was overpayment, and I don't recall seeing any type of restriction when they reimburse us for that. So we'll have to look into that a little bit more. I'll be looking into that myself. But yeah, this is the appraisal district has a board of 5 members who are appointed by the taxing entities, and then it has a chief appraiser who is under that board. They hire and fire the chief appraiser, and that's the extent of their duties. And then they take care of the budget, and they have monthly meetings, et cetera. My understanding is that there's been an offer extended to an unnamed person at this point to become the chief appraiser. I don't know any more details about that, Hopefully, it'll be someone who can come in here and hit the ground running. But this $522,870.73, although it's coming back to the county, and we did get a check, correct? There's money owed to all the taxing entities, as far as I know. And so stay tuned on that. That's my comment. Thank you.
Well, and I think that Mr. Petrie had mentioned that there is potential for some pretty significant upgrades in technology, hardware, software that the appraisal district may need in the not too distant future to increase the efficiency. And I think that just kind of setting this aside and holding off and seeing what the future holds for right now would probably be a good idea.
Any other comment or question? If not, I'll hear the motion.
Yes, I'll make the motion to accept the return of assessment overpayments paid to the Hood Central Appraisal District from 2020 and prior, 2021 and 2022, in the amount of $522,870.73. Funds should be directed into a separate line item general GL account to be set up by the auditor. Becky, do you want me to name the account, or do you know it yet? Okay.
Second.
Okay, a motion been made by Commissioner Samuelson to accept the overpayments from the Hood County Central Appraisal District from 2020, 2021, 2022 in the amount of $522,870.73 and deposit into a separate line item GL account to be set up by the auditor, second by Commissioner Andrews. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Next item, discuss and take appropriate action regarding the position of Development Director as it relates to the Hood County Commissioners Court policies and procedures, code of conduct, and filing of formal complaints. May adjourn into executive session as authorized by the Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel matters. Okay.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning, Mr.
Jeremy
Sorrell.
Sorrell, I'm here on behalf of Mr. Head. I was retained this morning to represent him in this issue. This is your agenda item, so I'll let you begin.
Okay. Well, we have 10 people that have signed up to, 11 people, excuse me, to talk about this. Would you rather hear any more of these allegations before you comment, or would you like to comment now?
I'll go ahead and start, Judge.
Okay.
First of all, there seems to be a couple of issues with this particular agenda item. One, I went through all of the Hood County policies and procedures, and there are procedures laid out for events such as this. They don't seem to be complied with by the county. There is no formal written complaint, as it's not been served on my client, or maybe there is an issue with due process here and he not receiving such said complaint. If there is a written complaint in accordance with your own procedures, an investigation has been completed in compliance with your own procedures, we would love to see a copy of that before moving forward with this agenda item. As well as your own procedures, there's a constitutional issue with 14th Amendment and due process. He's not been served with any formal complaint. Therefore, he cannot stand here and defend any formal complaint. So a constitutional violation as well as a violation of your own policies and procedures brings the question in my mind, how is this even an agenda item today? Further, I think the reliance here on this agenda item involves some oral allegations made at a previous Commissioners Court meeting by some individuals. That in and of itself is not a formal complaint. It's not been put into writing. It's not been presented to the Commissioners Court. It's not been investigated. Due process has not been followed. My client has not been served. He's not been given the opportunity to answer to any of these allegations. So again, this agenda item is improper. If this is to talk about those allegations, then that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, because that's not what you have on your agenda. So with that, I will say that the oral allegations that have been made against my client with the Sheriff's Department have been investigated, and no charges have come from that. As to my client's knowledge, nothing has been forwarded to the County Commissioner's Court in order for them to investigate anything as a formal complaint. So again, an improper agenda item. I think you have two options here today. Either you miraculously find a written complaint and you investigate it properly, you provide it to my client, you comply with your own policies and procedures, which, by the way, say this shouldn't be an agenda item anyway, even if you had a formal complaint, because your own policies and procedures say that this is to remain private. That's in your policies and procedures. So to move forward, you would be violating your own policies. But you could get that, you could do that, this complaint could show up, you could investigate it, you could follow your own protocol, and you could put this on an agenda in the future if it becomes necessary after your investigation and due process is complied with. The other option is you reject that notion that you too must follow the law. You move forward with the violations that I have aforementioned, his constitutional violations as well as the violations of your own policies and procedures, in furtherance of a solely politically motivated agenda item, and potentially subject yourself to personal liability and litigation. Those are your options. You'll make that decision. So again, this agenda item is not ripe, and as such, my client will not participate in any conversations until compliance by the county is had, and he will not waive any of his constitutional rights by speaking here today. We will ensure that you comply with your own policies and procedures as to what this agenda item specifically states is required, and then we can come back and address whatever issues, if any, there may be. The other side of this is that I'm quite frankly astonished that this is an agenda item. In the middle of the most important decisions of the year, our tax rates, our budgets, suddenly violating constitutional rights and your own policies is at the top of the agenda. That just baffles me to no end. The bigger disappointment in all of this is that you have heard the allegations. Apparently there's been no investigation. And yet, instead of defending someone that works from you from intolerable behavior, you want to subject him to some sort of public ridicule and a hearing that you've not done what's required of you for. It's ridiculous, completely ridiculous. Now, while I understand politics and the slating of candidates for the advancement of your particular platforms or agendas and how that all works, I get it. I would just ask one thing. And you know, I guess I'll just put it like this, specifically myself and Mr. Eagle, right? Sometimes we agree on things. The HCAT issue, issues at the courthouse, we can agree on things. Sometimes we disagree on things. And when we do, we take it through the proper processes, we follow the oaths that we swore to, we comply with the law, and we get reasonable and just resolutions. That's not what is happening here today. We just want to bring someone up here and put on a show, even though we've not done what we need to do. I understand slating candidates and putting that together, and I get that the candidate pool in Hood County is small, but I would just ask Mr. Eagle, as you put candidate pools together in the future, please try to find smarter monkeys. That's all we have, Judge.
Okay. Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir.
I think you've heard Mr. Sorrell's argument here. What is your take on this, that the county has not followed any kind of procedure that we should have than putting this up here at this point?
Well, I've kind of been brought halfway into the loop. Of
course, I was out of town last week. I spoke to Nanette. I was aware of the agenda item, but not aware of arguments to be made that this is an improper item or can't be considered. I mean, at a minimum, I don't see why we can't have the executive session, talk about issues work-related with the employee, and, you know, decide if there's action needed to be taken. Obviously, if there is action to be taken, then, you know, I would tread carefully, given some of these considerations, as far as the timeline and when this should be done and so on. I mean, but I don't see why we can't follow up with the agenda item and have the executive session at a minimum and just discuss kind of what's going on and how we feel this person is performing. I don't see why that can't be done.
Judge, if I may?
Yes.
The reason that you can't do that is because 551.074B says that you do not have the discretion as to whether this is in closed or open meeting, that is left to the discretion of the person being discussed. And Mr. Clint will have this meeting in open meeting, not in closed session, and again, will not participate for the reasons I've already laid out to the court.
Mr. Sorrell?
Yes, sir.
I agree with your reading of 551.074. If he wants it out here, that's his prerogative.
I agree, too. I didn't know that was the angle they were taking as far as that is concerned, and I have read that before, and that is correct. So, I mean, if he wants this aired out here, then that would be his prerogative if that's his choice. So.
Well, let's give us to the answer, Mr. Mills, then. Based upon the total law up here, since no formal complaint has been lodged against Mr. Head here at this time, and given all the laws, is it inappropriate to hear this at this time?
I don't think it's inappropriate to hear it at this time. And I'm not saying that to say anything about Clint, but I mean, it was placed on the agenda. There's a process for at least hearing and discussing conduct of employees that work for you. I mean, he had notice, everybody's had notice. He's hired a lawyer. If you want to discuss, well, I don't think you acted appropriately, or I think you did, or whatever, I don't see why you can't go forward with that conversation today, so.
And I'll add to that, if I may, that under Texas Government Code 551.07 small e, says a government body may not prohibit public criticism of the governmental body, including criticism of any act, omission, policy, procedure, program, or service. Rules must be viewpoint neutral. So I'm not sure written allegations have to be, there's any requirement for that in this particular instance. But that's my take on it. It is a noticed meeting, and the Commissioners Court has wide latitude, and this is an Article 5 court, by the way, where we are under the Texas Constitution. So, and we do have rules of decorum that actually repeat the concept that a government body may not prohibit public criticism. Anyway, that's what I got. Thanks.
No, but the public criticism, the subject matter here deals with an appointed official of the county. That's the subject matter of here, and he has certain rights that he has before he can be castigated and criticized for him. The two people that spoke at the last Commissioners Court that were put under oath when they named the development director by name and accused him of a criminal action, I swore in at the complainant's insistence. Their testimony, totally hearsay. They did not hear anything. They did not see anything. They could not testify anything. That that testimony is completely excluded from any court of law. Secondly, the Sheriff's Department has taken statements from the two young gentlemen that were involved in this, and based upon those statements that were received by the Sheriff's Office and the video cams from the officers, decided that there was no criminal action. So if there's no criminal action, no procedures were filed, I don't think that this body has the right to go through this at this particular time and just hear a bunch of rank allegations that the only people that were present there are Clint Head and the two complainants who've already spoke to the Sheriff's Office, that they've given a statement and they've given videos, and the Sheriff's Office didn't do anything. So what are we going to do? Just try to run this man's reputation right now, right before he runs, while he's running for public office?
Judge, I would just say there's two different issues.
Yes.
The points you've raised are correct in the sense that there was hearsay testimony from people who were not eyewitnesses. I've read the report. There are issues with the report. In other words, a claim being made that was later shown not to be accurate. Okay, so there are holes in the report, okay, that would help vindicate Mr. Head's actions in that incident from August the 9th. That's one issue. The other issue is may I'm the county attorney. Please, I'm speaking. You're calling a point of order. Okay.
I'll give you.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
Let's just clear this up right now.
What
This is
occurring now
not,
is the actual deliberation of this agenda item. Mr. Head and I are going to have a seat. We're not going to participate any further. We've made our statements. If the court wants to make a record continuing to violate its own policies and rights, then feel free to, but we're no longer going to participate.
okay, let me just clear this up.
Let me just finish. Can I just
Okay,
finish?
yes, sir.
I mean, so the first issue is what happened on August the 9th? Did Mr. Head violate any laws, policies, et cetera? And as I stated, there are issues in that report, as the judge stated, and I would concur with your concerns with that. The second question is, can Ms. Samuelson put an agenda item on the agenda to discuss the performance of a department head? Yes. So go ahead.
Thank you. So let's just clear this up. This has nothing to do with the testimony of the individuals that were here last court or the police investigation. This has everything to do with what's showing on the screen right now, which is the code of conduct. Specifically bullet points, they're not numbered, but bullet points 3 and 4. And we have, as the Commissioners Court, with appointed officials reporting to us, we have the responsibility and the obligation to hold employees accountable to the code of conduct. And that's what this is about. So I hope that clears it up.
Well, and the code of conduct has been investigated by the Sheriff's Department.
No, sir. Are you reading what it says here? An employee will be courteous to the public and allow and fellow employees. An employee's conduct will always be civil and orderly. The employee will be diplomatic and tactful in the performance of assigned duties, controlling his or her temper and exercising reasonable patience and discretion. The employee will refrain from fighting, threatening, intimidating, or coercing other employees or members of the public during working hours at county-sponsored functions or while attending court proceedings. That includes speaking out, intimidating people while you're sitting at your seat, and that has occurred on 2 different courts since I've been elected. So that's what this is about. And I have discussed this with Jim Allison, and there is no reason, and I've also discussed it with our HR person who has discussed this with Mr. Head. So it's very appropriate for us as the employers, and this is kind of different than private practice, right? If he were my personal employee, I would have already sat down with him and had this discussion. But we're all 5 his supervisors. So, and as you know, with Open Meetings Act, we can't just all get in a room and have a discussion. So the only way to have this discussion is put it on the agenda and talk about it. So that's what this is about, is the code of conduct and behavior during public meetings. Would you like me to
Any other
continue?
commissioner wish to respond to this, or any commissioner? Well, it's my personal opinion that this instance needs to be investigated further and then have it. It needs to be tabled until a full investigation can be made with his attorney, who just, I've been informed this morning, has returned from vacation yesterday from being in Europe. So let him have the opportunity to do that, and let's do an investigation as to really what happened, and sit down and talk to the 2 complaining witnesses,
As I
and
said-
talk to all of the investigative officers who were there, and
What does that have to do with the
then we can come back here and
behavior?
have a real clarification where all the real true facts are here, rather than just to accuse him based upon, your whole allegation is
I'm
based
not-
upon 2.
I'm not out, no, Judge, you
Yeah,
completely
no.
didn't listen to
Let me
anything
finish
I
my
just said.
statement, please.
Is
Your
that a
ba-
motion
your
to
whole deal
table,
is
Judge?
based upon the allegations of 2 young men that started with confronting Clint Head at the Sonic. That's what started this whole deal, and then it ended up with allegations that came with his grandfather and some other person up here accusing him of brandishing a weapon. We all heard it on her sworn oath. There's a lot of difference in here. I'd like to ferret out and give both sides the opportunity to really see what are the true facts about all of this, rather than just innuendo about this. That's what I
This has
am
just the
opposed to doing.
behavior. On April 25th, during court, when the Dunns were speaking, Clint spoke out during public comments. He had not signed up for public comments, but he spoke out and was very disrespectful to Mr. Friedman, who's the attorney for the Dunns. He said, and I went back and reviewed the video, anyone can do that, from April 25th. Without all the rhetoric and conjecture, was one of his statements, disparaging a public citizen, private citizen who's he's a lawyer representing the Dunns. He doesn't know the history. You ever heard a perspective? He can sit there and fast talk y'all all he wants. This is not appropriate for a member of anyone who's sitting, but especially looking at our code of conduct, a Hood County employee, to be speaking out without signing up for public comments and speaking out from their desk, disparaging a member of the public. Additionally, he was disrespectful when he said, this is during the time that he had resigned, he said, I've turned in my resignation, go do it. This is a violation of the code of conduct. Employee will be courteous to the public and fellow employees, and employees' conduct will always be civil and orderly. The employee will be diplomatic and tactful in the performance of assigned duties, controlling his or her temper and exercising reasonable patience and discretion. The employee will refrain from fighting, threatening, intimidating, or coercing other employees or members of the public during working hours, at county-sponsored functions, and while attending court proceedings. And if I'm not mistaken, Melissa, you can tell me if I'm wrong, when you discussed this with Clint, you mentioned that this was about the code of conduct and nothing to do with the sheriff's investigation.
I explained that moving forward, this was only about moving forward and our behavior moving forward.
Thank you. This was also a violation of the rules of decorum requiring people to sign up to speak on an agenda item. At the August 22nd Commissioners Court meeting, he continually spoke out from his seat during citizens' comments at large, was visually upset, and repeatedly asked the judge to put them under oath and show the video. Clint spoke out, will you put these people under oath and pull up the video? These people need to be under oath under the penalty of perjury. Again, a violation of the code of conduct and the rules of decorum. Speaking out during open comments and intimidating members of the public. He did that multiple times. You all, if you were here, you saw it, or you can watch the video. I don't really know how he knew those people were going to be here and how he knew to have the video queued up. Then he interrupted again and said, they didn't just call me by title, they called me by name. Again, if you want to speak during public comments, you need to sign up and come to the podium, not speak out from your chair. He continually interrupting Clint, speaking out again at the end. He said, a long day ahead of us, and other comments that were inaudible because everyone was talking at once by that time. This is still during open public comments at large. There should be no interaction. Then he threatened Commissioner Eagle, again out of order. I'm going to call an attorney. How did that man know someone got arrested unless Eagle told them? Again, speaking out from your chair, this is just what he was saying, as a violation of the code of conduct. Employees will refrain from fighting, threatening, intimidating, or coercing other employees or members of the public during working hours or county-sponsored functions or while attending court proceedings. I did request the video, and I'm not sure what the point of him wanting to show the video was, because you can't see anything. The video is from, if you're familiar with the Acton Annex and you know where the chiropractor's office is, the camera is there pointing completely down the parking lot. And anyway, this is not about that. This is about actions during court. So that's all this is about, is holding someone accountable for the employee accountable for the code of conduct. And as I said at the beginning, we have the responsibility and the obligation to hold employees accountable to the code of conduct, and that's what this is.
Well, the same thing that you accused Clint of is Miss Katie Lang did the same thing when she was sitting right down here.
Excuse me, Judge. Katie Lang is not our employee.
Well,
Katie Lang is not our employee. She's an elected official. Clint Head is our employee.
Oh, I'm talking
There's a
about
difference.
the same thing that she did.
Yes, it does. She's not our employee.
Okay.
All right, as far as the August 9th incident, the investigation there, the sheriff's department found nothing on this. This is,
Right.
I think that we're pretty much in agreement that we're not going anywhere near that. I guess the question at this point is, if we do need to say something to Mr. Head, how do we do it? Do we, this seems horrible to me to be doing this out here in open public. And Clint, I would ask you to please allow us, come with us into, and this has nothing to do with August 9th, but please, let's go back here and talk about a couple of things and see if there's something that we can do without this turning into more of a circus that it's already begun to be. Would you be willing to do that, or? All right. I hate to do this, Clint. There have been a couple of times that I've thought that you've handled people in the public too rough, that we needed to be more professional in dealing with people and soften that tone up a little bit. That's what I've got to say about this. I think that this is something that we could take care of back here and discuss this, but, I think that you do a great job performing your job. You're very knowledgeable of what you've got going on. You do a good job, but sometimes you get a little rough with people. That's what I've got to say.
Well, I guess I'm going to say for the record that since the county attorney has said that in his opinion, that his legal opinion, that we should go forward with hearing item number 2 as discussed. In my opinion, for the record, I'm opposed to going forward with hearing it for the reasons that I've already stated, and feel like Clint Head, like any other individual, is entitled to his constitutional rights as given to him. I am opposed to going forward with this hearing, and I so note my objections on the record, but I also think that I am duty-bound to follow the advice of the county attorney in this matters when we are in open court. So, having said that, we have 11 people.
Can I ask one more? Matt, would it be more appropriate to specify, and I think you did, but I mean, would it be more appropriate to specify in writing the concerns going on? That seems like it wouldn't be, because then you're dragging everything back out in the open. But if there needs to be some kind of a written, does there need to be a written charge or formal complaint?
Well, I guess there's a chicken and egg question. I mean, how do you have a written charge or a formal complaint unless everybody gets together and votes on something, right? I mean, if Nanette does something on her own, that's just her. So, I mean, we have to gather the group and decide what to do or not to do, if anything.
Which is exactly what I was instructed to do by Jim Allison. This is the procedure that was instructed by our attorney at TAC.
Right.
Because there's no other way to do it.
Right. And, I mean, we've had issues with fire marshal and a former HR director and things like that where, I mean, usually we did go into executive session, but we've had these conversations before to what do you do about somebody doing something that they allegedly did? I mean, you got to have it in court somehow.
I don't really like this being called a hearing. This isn't a hearing. This is an agenda item where we're discussing an employee's performance as it relates to the code of conduct.
Okay, well, sorry I used the
Oh,
wrong
no,
word.
I don't think you did.
No. Thanks for, because how do you, exactly like you said, a chicken or egg, how does this come up? Does somebody, a commissioner, write a complaint or whatever and then turn it in, but then it's public record and it?
Well, and, I talked to Melissa about this before court today, but I mean, if Nanette wanted to write up an employee, I mean, to me, that's not worth a whole lot because that's one person speaking. That, to me, that's not a real write-up unless at least the majority of the employers agree.
Right, yeah, and how would you get to that point, exactly?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's,
I would like to make a motion to table this. We got a lot of business to do, and we can come back to this at another time.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Commissioner Eagle to table item number 2, second by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. Okay. Motion.
Who said nay?
no, there's somebody out there.
There was somebody out in the audience. Okay.
Yeah, you're out of order, sir.
Okay. So item number 2 is tabled. Okay. Item number 3, discuss and take appropriate action regarding sales tax revenue line item for the 2023-2024 budget.
Thank you. As we spoke about this at the budget hearing a couple weeks ago, and as you all know, during that agenda item, there was no action to be taken because it was a hearing. So I wanted to put this back on here as an actionable item. So as I mentioned during the budget discussion, we are currently at $5.3 million in sales tax. As you can see on this chart, it says 5.292, so I just rounded it to 5.3 through June. Sales tax we receive from the state is about a 2-month delay. This is an average of $588,000 per month. Using a conservative $500,000 a month average for the remaining 3 months, we will be at about $6.8 million at the end of this fiscal year, which will result in excess sales tax of $2.3 million, which can only, as we've been instructed and per code, this can only be used to pay down debt or to pay towards a TCDRS retirement. So once we reach the end of this year, we will have all but paid. I mean, we are in really good shape on debt for the county. Y'all should all be proud of that. So just over $1 million in TCDRS retirement liability. So we'll pretty much have cleared that off with the $2.3 million that we will likely be at the end of the year. And that's looking at a conservative $500,000 per month, not the average of $588,000. So given our position on debt and TCDRS liability, it makes fiscal sense to tighten up our sales tax to be much closer to the actual revenue. My recommendation for 2022-23 budget is to set the sales tax at $6 million. That's an average of $500,000 a month, which is still estimating lower than what we are averaging this year.
Anybody wish to comment? Ms. Kidd?
Whatever y'all decide.
Well, what do you think it's going to do if we...
I think you're going to be in trouble next year if you continue on this path. I really do. And I'm not the only one that thinks so. And Ms. Samuelson, talking to 2 other auditors, did you explain our financial situation? Did you tell them what good shape we're in?
Yes.
Did you talk to them about everything? I'd love to talk to them. Could you send me their information? Because I would love to talk to them.
I will.
How are you going to keep an auditor when you come to court and do that?
Do what?
What does that mean?
I don't know.
I'm not talking to you right now.
Do what? I'm sorry. This is...
I come to court and you say, I've talked to other auditors.
I'm doing research.
What's right here?
I talk to you and call you and sit down with you a lot.
And
but
we had this discussion. I'm baffled. I really am. I work really hard for this county, and I feel very disrespected. 25 years of experience sitting here. I'm not trying to take care of y'all. That's not my job. My job is these people out here, the taxpayer, which I'm one of.
Yes.
And it's very disrespectful to me. And it just is. Sorry.
Okay.
But there is no emotion here, Mr. Eagle. You and I spent 2 years arguing over you talking to other auditors.
There's no reason why
Let
anyone...
her finish.
Okay.
Let her
Sorry,
finish.
I thought she was done.
Please.
I want to do the best for this county, but it's really hard when you come to court and you get beat up. And we're in great shape. That's what I don't understand. We have great audits reviews by an outside firm every year. And they tell you what good financial shape we're in. I'm trying to keep y'all there. But you won't listen to me. So whatever you decide to do, I'll put in the budget. Thank you.
All right. So I don't think there's any... The 5 of us are charged with doing what's right, the fiscal responsibility for the county. And if any one of us wants to do any amount of research, no one should take offense to that. That's our job. So yes, I don't just go to one person. I do research across the state. Yes, I've only been in this position for 8 months, but I spent 40 years working in business, doing budgets, setting forecasts, looking at the economy, doing research, looking at signals of what the economy's doing and how that might impact us, whatever business it was. So I come here with a wide variety of business knowledge, which is actually a good thing to bring to county government is the business knowledge that you have from working in private practice in a large multi-billion-dollar company. So I will continue to do research to do what's best for the taxpayers. And one of the things that has crossed my mind with this is because we are in such good shape from a budget perspective as far as debt and liability, if we set this tax rate too low, this sales tax, sorry, not tax rate, but sales tax revenue too low, and at the end of next year, we have a $2 million overage, we don't have debt to put it to, we don't have a TCRDS liability to put it to, what do you do with that overage?
I've already recommended that you borrow money to keep your debt rate up. You need fire trucks. There are so many things that you can do.
But we already have in the budget a debt rate to collect $3 million.
Yes, but you can borrow as much as you want and take that additional money and pay on it and get fire trucks and do things for this county. You are in a unique position, like I've said before. You can do good for the county.
And we will still, at this rate, even if we set it at $6 million, we'll likely have a sales tax overage.
What's your offset?
That depends on whether or not we have the recession that's being forecast, because if there's a recession, we're not going to have that income coming in.
If we
What
have a
is your
recession,
offset?
costs will also go down. If we
What's
have
your
a
offset?
offset, what do you,
Well, when you add the revenue, what are you going to do with the other side of it? Because that gives me a surplus in revenue. Are you wanting to lower the tax rate?
that's a possibility.
Again, I think we're
Here's the
going to
deal.
be in trouble
I
next year.
appreciate Ms. Samuelson's wide range of experience in the private sector. I really like that.
That's
I'll
not-
take Becky Kidd's 25 years in the government section, and we are in the situation that we're in. We are in an enviable position by almost, I would say, 252 counties out of the 254 in the state of Texas because of Becky Kidd's knowledge in working with us and the Commissioners Court following her advice. I mean, this is what she does for a living. She has no axe to grind in here, but she's not answerable to the taxpayers. Everybody'd like to pay less taxes. I pay a lot of taxes myself. I'd like to pay less taxes. But is that best for the county? Like she says, some people say, yeah, let's pay less taxes. We are growing so much. We got the recession that's looming. We don't know what's going to happen. I trust Becky Kidd when she and I have sat down here and worked at this budget and come up with it. You bet. Maybe that'd make me look like a winner to the taxpayers here, but I want to try to do what's best for the taxpayers. And you got to err on the side of caution. That's what I say. I followed her advice and worked with her, and the first year I was here, I wanted to make a bunch of changes, and she finally broke me down and said, well, let's go ahead and try this. And then year after year, I've done it, and we had a court that did follow what her advice was. And I think it's done us well. And that's why we are in the position that we're in. And we cannot afford to keep cutting and cutting and cutting. Commissioner Eagle says that I've never seen a government budget that I couldn't cut. Well, I think we're getting down to where it's going to be dangerously cut. I don't want to take that chance with the taxpayers of Hood County and Hood County. We're in an enviable position. We are cutting taxes. I think we should do what Becky Kidd and I have advised, and she has talked with Nanette Samuelson endlessly. Y'all have had hours and hours of conversation, haven't you, Ms. Samuelson?
I wouldn't say hours and hours, but we've talked a lot.
Yeah, talked a lot. That's what I'm saying here. So it's not that she's not listening. It's the question of, what do you want to trust here on the thing? Do we want to do something that's tried and proven? That's what we got here. We are in this shape right now really because of Becky Kidd. You can say what you want, but that's what's happened. That's what's happened in the 5 years that I've been here. And I've argued with her too. There's been a lot of times that she and I have had arguments. But in the end, we've shaved just like we did here. It was initially 0.62, 287,622, and now she come back and I said, let's go ahead and try to see if we can get lower. Now you're recommending 262,570, right?
287,540.
287,570.
I'd add-
You know, but it's always on the side of caution that if something bad happens, we get a Maui disaster, we get a real tornado here, something real devastation happens to this county, we're going to be able to take care of the people and this county. So
If you want to budget that, then the offset should be to let me reduce transfer from prior fund balance. And then next year, when you give the homeowners a $100,000 break and you're going to bring in less money, your tax rate will be able to sustain that. If you never go backwards, Nanette. I learned that a long time ago. You never go backwards.
Okay, so anyone else have any?
I got something. So first of all, this is not about anybody's intention. I know that Becky's got great intentions, just like I know that Commissioner Samuelson's got great intentions. So this is not about intentions. It's not about personalities, I hope. And as you have pointed out, Ms. Kidd, you and I have, let's just say we've gone back and forth on the sales tax item for years. And it's a policy decision. It's a policy decision. And Commissioner Samuelson has estimated at the current rate that we're going to end up with bringing in $6.8 million, and the sales tax figure was $4.1 million. And there's limited places that the overages of that account can be put once it comes back. So I'm in agreement that we need to raise that the line item for the sales tax should be raised. I'm not sure I agree with taking it to 6, but to recognize somebody in the office. We got a very well-drafted commentary here from Mr. Hefts, and I don't know if I ever pronounced that right. Is that right?
No, sir, Aves.
Hefts with an A.
Yes, sir.
And I believe Mr. Hayes has been in the private sector, as well as myself and as well as Commissioner Samuelson, and the judge for that matter, well, and all of us.
And myself also.
And so there are some, this is this seat's opinion, and mine alone. I agree that there are some differences in operating a government from that of the private sector, but not many. The functions of economics and the principles of economics still work, even in the government. And the problem with government is that everything that it has to operate on comes from you. Every penny comes from the taxpayers. So this is a policy issue that, again, Mr. Hafes suggested that we raise the factor $500,000 for the sales tax. Ms. Samuelson's suggesting $1.5 million as the factor for the sales tax.
I already budgeted 133.
Yeah.
And very quickly, I'd like to add something that everybody needs to understand. What we budgeted in property tax last year, and we're in September, we're still nearly $1 million short. Y'all understand that. I'm trying to help y'all understand this. It's September, and we're $1 million short in what we asked for. That's what I look at. That's what I foresee, and I try to make sure you guys are okay.
$1 million short on what?
collecting property tax. We're at the end of our year, and there's about $1 million that we need to have collected, but we haven't. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me, but the facts are the facts.
Well, let me tell you why that's going on. And this is another opinion from this seat right here. It's going on because so many people have received tax appraisals this year on their property that's 30%, 40% higher than last year.
I understand that, but this is still last year's money coming in. This isn't new money. This is still last year money. This is our 2023 budgeted money that we anticipated to get on property tax.
And you're saying that there's another $1 million that's supposed to be in?
Close to $1 million, yes.
We're at 24.1 and we budgeted 24.9. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So you understand my concern?
So that's $800,000.
You understand? Well, and then there's also the prior year that we would anticipate to get, so that's why I say close to $1 million. That's a concern.
There's
a tax sale going on right now,
That's
so
what I
that's
was
going to
about
get
to
some
say.
of
And
it.
I know that, I mean, he's close to getting that, just in what the fees and the people that have come to the table with their back taxes because they didn't want their property to go on auction. So I'm sure after today, you will see that number bump.
Yeah,
I hope
he had
so.
89, they had 89 properties on the,
Because we've never been this far down at the end of the year. So it's a concern.
You'll see that bump up after today's auction when the constable reports all of the back taxes that were paid so that their property would not go to auction, and then the results of the auction. Okay, so what Mr. Hayes was saying was $500,000 more than what we currently had, which would put us at 5.5, which is about $400,000 more than you currently have because you bumped it up to 5.1.
Yes. And my recommendation is still offset it with prior year fund balance and not change your tax rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a continuous balancing act that goes on here, and I'll always fall on the side of let's be in favor of the taxpayer. This is kind of a similar situation to what we've got with HCAD, where there's some overpayment going on there. I would rather see a little bit more of a tax cut go to the taxpayer. I'm not slamming the door on your concerns by any means, but my concern is whenever you get to the other side of this, if this money only has two things that it can go to, do we get backed into a corner? We can't overfund I don't think it's proper to overfund our retirement, and I don't want to have to borrow money, intentionally overborrow money just to keep that up. I understand there's a balance in there also, but I think that we're at an opportunity here that we could give a little bit of a tax break and come out with everything still being pretty good. I'd like to sit and investigate that some more and make this a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. I do believe taxpayers do a much better job of managing and saving their own money. It's not the government's purpose or responsibility to tax people and put it aside in a fund balance just in case. I mean, that's...
Disagree.
Okay, Mr. Haves, you've signed up to speak on this item number 3. Please come in.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. My name is Richard Hafes. I'm privileged to live in this county, and I'm privileged to have you as our Board of Commissioners. As you said today, the county is in great financial shape. That's due to this court and previous courts, and to no small measure to Ms. Kidd and her leadership through finances. We are the envy of most counties, as you said, Judge. The question before you is, how conservative is the budget to be? I understand saving for the future. I understand financial responsibility. Besides being a manager for a Fortune 100 company for 30 years, I have my personal budget. And this discussion reminds me very much of a discussion I had with my wife some number of years ago. I saved for retirement from my 20s, and I was always putting money away for the future. And I was reviewing our finances with her one day, and they were great. I was ahead of plan, and I was feeling good, and she asked the key question, how good is too good? I think that's the question before us today. How good is too good? On my personal life, I cranked down, I reduced the investment for retirement a little bit, and we had a fuller life, and we benefited. I think that's the question you're looking at today. Can we adjust the numbers a little bit? Sales tax is unlikely to go down significantly, even in a recession, because of people moving into the county. That's more people here to buy, and inflation. That just bumps it up naturally. Yes, a recession is possible, but even at a $5.5 million, or even on perhaps a higher number, I think we're on solid ground and unlikely to show a shortage on this line item. But what we can do with that by increasing it is lower that tax rate a little bit, maybe ½ cent. That those of us who pay taxes, which is pretty much everybody in this room, that goes straight to our wallets and helps us deal with the financial realities we find ourselves in. Gives ourselves fuller lives and more opportunities, letting the taxpayer make the decision. I don't know what the exact answer is. I don't know that any of us do, because we don't have a crystal ball. Trust me, if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be here. I'd be out making billions of dollars using it. But we're doing what's prudent, and you're doing what's prudent. The only question is exactly what number. I think in today's environment, we're in such good shape, we can turn back just a little bit on being cautious and give a little more money back to the taxpayer. But whatever you decide, I know you've decided it based on what you believe is the best for the county and the people who are fortunate to live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is your rate?
Well
What
said.
is the rate that you're talking about then?
I would recommend setting the estimate on sales tax at $5.5 million for the year. I think that's a conservative number that is almost guaranteed to be reached and exceeded, and will give us enough money to give a slight reduction in the current proposed tax rate.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Very, very well put.
Thank you.
And
Well said.
I was remiss in Ms. Kidd, I think you have done an excellent job. I'm not, but we've had this discussion before where I think that we're kind of at opposing viewpoints on a lot of this stuff. And that's where it becomes a policy decision. Where do we want to be? And I think that, Mr. Hafes, you hit it on the head right there. I appreciate what you had to say.
How much was your rate? What did you want to?
5.1. She has-
5.13.
So it's about $400,000.
5.13?
And again, 5.5 is great. I have no problem with that. It's what you do with that. I worry if you lower your tax rate, you'll be in trouble next year. It's my opinion, and it's just an opinion. So whatever the court tells me to do, I'm happy to do. I'll give you the best advice I can.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Make the motion to set the sales tax revenue line item for 2023-24 budget at $5.5 million.
Second.
A motion been made by Commissioner Samuelson to set the sales tax revenue for 2023-2024 at $5.5 million, second by Commissioner Wilson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion carries 4-1. Okay, item number 4, discuss matters related to the 2023-2024 budget. May adjourn into executive session as authorized by the Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel matters. So at this time, we're going to,
I do have one item that is not about personnel matters. Can I talk about that before we go into executive session?
what item is it?
It's about the budget. but it's not something that's appropriate for executive session.
Okay.
So looking at the fuel number in budget 4440, which is the purchasing, Glenn's budget, we're set at 100,000 more than we have used this year. So currently, well, our budget last year for fuel was set very high at 660,000. There was some reasons for that. That's been reduced. We're currently at a spend of about $200,000. So at $3.30 a gallon, raising it up to raising up $100,000 to $300,000, that's 30,300 more gallons of fuel times about 15 miles a gallon is about 454,000 miles driven more next year than this year. Plus, you add to that we are in the process of getting our own fuel storage tank, which will give us a benefit of buying fuel at wholesale prices. So that will decrease our expense. So we've spent just over $200,000 this year with 1 month to go.
No, about 2 months. 2 months.
2 months to go. So, so setting it at 250 is about a 25% increase, but that is not accounting for the decrease in fuel expense because we're going to be able to purchase wholesale gas. And I've had a few discussions with Sheriff Deeds. I don't know if you had a chance to find out what the wholesale would be, or Glenn, what is our expected, when we decided to invest in this fuel tank for multiple reasons, not just for the savings, but also for the access to fuel in times of emergency. What was the proposal on the savings on per gallon?
Well, the purpose for the fuel tank was for safety purposes. I don't recall what the analysis was back at that time. I did see your email this morning, put a call out to our sales rep with Synergy, but I've not heard back at this time as to what the price would be. But the main focus in the fuel tank was for public safety, for ice events, for hurricane events.
Shortages.
Yeah. Exactly. That was more the focus, because by the time you add in the cost of the fuel tank and et cetera, I don't think the savings is a large issue there. As far as the budget, 300,000 for this year?
For next year.
For next year?
Yeah, it's,
How,
They do take the patrol cars home now, and that fuel has gone up, gone down. There, we've no way to predict the future, but with the additional cost of taking patrol car homes, that's made a difference.
yeah. So I did reach out to an expert that I know that watches fuel prices and knows a lot about that market. And what that commentary was is that you get a break on the wholesale price. Your break-even point is at 10 gallons. So as long as we're purchasing more than 10 gallons at a time, which, what does the fuel tank hold? 25. So as long as we purchase more than $10 10 gallons at a time, the bulk rate is cheaper than retail gas. So assuming we fill it up at 15, 20 gallons or more at a time, we will see a break in the cost of fuel.
So the tank is 5,000.
Oh, okay, I was wondering why you said.
No, well, I thought you meant just a,
No, I was wondering why it was so small. It's like, what?
no, so that's on a vehicle, but the fuel tank will hold a lot more, so.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so as long as, so we will see a break, especially if we're buying that large a bulk of fuel at one time. So we will see a decrease in our cost of fuel, which is good.
excuse me for asking, what do you mean by a safety issue? Every one of us have to pull into the gas station every time we need gas. Maybe you can help me with that, Sheriff?
Yeah, one of the reasons we brought it up Years ago, we used to have a tank over there, and we tried to keep it topped off for the most part, or when it gets down kind of low, then we'd get it filled up again. And whenever the hurricanes come in, the refinery shut down, and then you don't know where you're going to get fuel. The fuel starts running out at the stations. The fuel cards that we have not been working very many places, and we go to, most time, just go down to the Chevron on Pearl Street, and it's one of the more expensive stations. It doesn't work at Racetrack, Texaco's, Valero's, a lot of easy places to get in and out of, and so they have to search around for fuel. So when we need fuel for the patrol cars, they should always have it up there at the...
So it's backup?
It's backup to, like
Okay.
when we had the power outages, then the pumps wouldn't work. So ours will work because it's tied into a generator. So it's being able to get to the citizens when we need to get to the citizens and be able to get the fuel we need to get it done. So.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Y'all ready to go into executive session at 10 minutes to 10 minutes to 11. Okay. We'll adjourn into executive session now, 10 minutes to 11. Okay, we're back on in Commissioners Court at 12:23. The budget was discussed, but no decisions made. So we're now on item number 5, which is consider the proposed increase in tax revenues of the proposed budget of 3.5%, an increase in revenue of $899,945, and take a record vote regarding that increase per local government code section 111.008C.
Judge, we did discuss some changes. No decisions were made, some suggestions for the budget. So I would like to put those in place. So I would suggest that we table 5, 6, 7, and 8. Does everyone agree with that?
Motion to table items 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Second. Motion been made by Commissioner Eagle to table items 5, 6, 7, and 8, second by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Item 8, consider and take appropriate action.
We tabled it.
Oh, we tabled everything.
5, 6,
That's it.
7, and 8.
5, 6, 7.
We may
All
be,
you need to do is
Have been
adjourn,
that
Judge.
long? Okay, good. That concludes this special meeting. Thank you all.